Hi everyone. So as Sue mentioned, I am Brittany Barks. I am with the Approvals Unit reviewing. Okay. No, I think it's fine. Reviewing nutrient management strategies and NASM plans. And over the past couple years, I've kind of become the go-to person, I guess, for source water questions and issues that arise during review of the strategies and NASM plans. So today I just wanted to give you guys an update on the work that our unit has done in the past year for nutrient management related to source water. So having said that, I wanted to make it clear that this presentation is meant only as an update on the work that our unit has done and not as source water training information session in general. I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. So it's a very scoped presentation today. So just an outline. So I'll start with OMAFRA's obligations under the Clean Water Act. Basically, why do we have to do anything for source water to begin with? And then I'll talk about what we did last year and then what is upcoming this year to meet those obligations. So as of 2016, all of the source protection plans were in effect, meaning that there are 22 different source protection plans across the province, and all of the plans have their own policies to address drinking water threats. Of those source protection plans, almost all of them have policies that can impact nutrient management strategies, whether they are future strategies, meaning those that we are getting in after the source protection plans have come into effect, or existing strategies, which are those that were approved prior to the source protection plan coming into effect. So of those future and existing policies, they can either, generally prohibit an activity from occurring or allow for the management of the activity through something like a risk management plan or a nutrient management strategy. So any strategy that we get that is impacted by source water, we have to make sure that it conforms to the source protection policies. And in addition to that, we are required by the Clean Water Act to amend existing strategies to conform with the source protection policies. Now finally, each source protection plan has its own timeline for when we have to review all of the existing strategies by. So example, within 3 years of the plan coming into effect, and of course, all of those plans have their own timelines. So just to jump into future and existing strategies and the work that we've done for both. So again, future strategies are those that we are getting in for approval after the source protection plans have come into effect. And we have modified our review process to incorporate source water. And anything that we find is treated on a case-by-case basis, because obviously every policy is different and every farm has its own characteristics. So the general review process, we're checking every strategy, the farm unit, to see if any of the farms fall within a vulnerable area. If they do, we are determining what the policy impact is, whether it's a prohibition or management policy. If it's a management policy, we need to determine if any additional measures are needed in the strategy to address source water. And we work with the risk management official and consultants to do so. And if there are additional practices needed, they may be added as conditions to the approval. We do have a standard condition that we are putting on all approvals that fall within a source water vulnerable area, whether they have additional conditions for source water or not. Basically, this condition requires that the director be notified before any activities related to nutrient management are established in a vulnerable area that weren't originally approved in the strategy itself. So any strategy that we get that is impacted by source water, it takes a lot of time when we do come across one. So there are a few things that you guys as consultants can do before sending in a strategy to us that can save a lot of time in the long run. So first, you should be checking the farm unit to see if any of the farms fall within a vulnerable area. You can use Ag Maps or the Ministry of Environment Source Water Protection Mapper. Both of those have the data layers available online. If the farm unit doesn't fall within a vulnerable area, perfect. You're pretty much done there. But if it does, you should be looking at the source protection policies to see which kind of policies apply, whether they're prohibition or management policies. If it is a management policy, you should be working with your client to see if any practices are needed in the strategy to address source water. Remembering that in addition to the nutrient management regulation, any strategies impacted by source water still have to meet the Clean Water Act and the local source protection policies, which may mean adding conditions to the approval that go above the nutrient management regulation. So that was what we did last year. And I'm going to move to what we're looking at doing this upcoming year regarding the obligation under the Clean Water Act to amend all of our existing strategies. So again, existing strategies are those that we approved before the plans came into effect. And in early 2017, we used GIS to pull all of the existing strategies that fell within a vulnerable area. And in April, we sent a letter to those strategy holders indicating that their strategy may be impacted by source water. And then in the fall of 2017, we sent additional letters clarifying some of the impacts of source water to their operation. Excuse me. So there were 4 main letters that we sent out this past fall. The first was for farms that were captured because we were a little bit overcautious in the GIS analysis that we did. We used a vulnerable area that couldn't actually have significant threats related to nutrient management. So those farmers, the letters indicated that nothing had to be done with their strategy, and we sent 15 of those letters. The next letters were for operations where their strategy had actually expired, and the letters explained that we couldn't actually review or amend the strategy anymore, simply because we don't have the authority to review existing or expired strategies. So the letter said that the farmer should work with their consultant and the risk management official for more information, and we sent 20 of those letters. The third type of letter that we sent was for strategies that are still active, but they didn't seem to have any strategy regulated activities occurring in the vulnerable area, so like permanent storage, an OCA, or a yard. So that means that there's nothing really that we can regulate through a strategy in the vulnerable area. There's nothing that we can apply a source protection policy to. These letters did have that standard condition that I talked about earlier, that the director be notified before activities occur in the vulnerable area, and we sent 9 of those letters. The last type of letter is for operations where there is a strategy regulated activity occurring in the vulnerable area, and we are therefore required to amend the strategy to conform with source protection policies. So the letter indicates that the farmer worked with a consultant to see if any additional practices need to be incorporated into the strategy, and to update and send that updated strategy to us for review and approval. Because of the timelines that I mentioned earlier that each source protection plan has, there will be a deadline on these letters for farmers to send their strategies by. If not, we may have to take action like suspending the approval or imposing conditions on the strategy that we have on record. So that's what we were working on last year related to source water. Now I just want to go over what we are looking to do this year quickly. So first, the majority of the letters that I just talked about, those strategy regulated activity letters, will be sent out. There are some upcoming deadlines, source protection plan deadlines that we have to meet in April, July, and December. There's a handful of those letters, so it might not impact very many of you here. The next thing that we're looking at doing is posting an information package for source water, like Matt mentioned earlier, which is meant to be a consolidated spot where you guys can go and get information related to source water, tools and resources to use, how to tell if a strategy is impacted, and what to do if one is. So that will be on nutrientmanagement.ca. And lastly, we will be looking at organizing a source water training day for consultants, either in February or March, early spring, to help basically just provide more information on the program, including the background and history of source water, how to identify the vulnerable areas, how to determine if an activity is a significant drinking water threat or not, what source water means for strategies and what should be considered when you're trying to incorporate it into a strategy, and then the various tools and resources for incorporating source water into strategies. As consultants, you guys haven't gotten a lot of opportunity to have training on source water, so this is something that we are really pushing for. So hopefully I'm still under time. Perfect. So I'll take questions, and again, scoped to the information in this presentation. More information, hopefully detailed source water, will be in a training day later. Okay. Yeah.
Clarification, you're sending the letters to the farm and the consultant who submitted the strategy?
Yeah, so the question was basically who are we sending the letters to, the farm and the consultant? We are sending the letters to the farmer and copying the consultant that prepared the strategy.
Second question, please.
Yep.
You're talking about nutrient management strategies that have to be approved for an expansion or of an existing one or building permit requirement. You are not referring to risk management officials asking for a strategy or plan as a due diligence in a vulnerable area.
Okay, so
You're not reviewing those.
right. So the question was, are we talking about strategies that come through us through the regulatory requirement of needing a strategy versus strategies that are requested by risk management officials as part of their due diligence? Yeah, no, we're looking at the strategies that have to come through us for approval. We're not reviewing and approving strategies that don't need to be as part of the nutrient management regulation.
But risk management officials still could be asking for them?
The risk management officials can ask the farmer if they would be interested in doing a strategy. It wouldn't be anything that comes through us. It can be a tool that the risk management official uses if they need to make a risk management plan. But the RMO can't request or require a strategy for source water when there isn't a trigger under the nutrient management regulation. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yep. Jasper.
Brittany, thanks for the update. I have probably done the second farm that was in the risk management area.
Okay.
I'm a little bit middle of the process. One of my clients got the original letter last spring. I discussed that letter with the risk management officer in the county. I explained to her what was done environmentally and that the lands in question, that would be for the nitrate contributing area, were managed properly and showed no red flag in a 5-year cropping plan. The risk management officer was more than happy with my response. Yet the farmer got another letter. And, you know, this man is getting upset. He starts bouncing between the ceiling and the floor.
Okay.
When he gets this stuff. Now, like, you know, I mean, if the risk officer in the county is satisfied, why are you guys still concerned?
So Jasper's comment was that a farmer that he's working with got a letter from us. Jasper and the farmer talked to the risk management official about the practices and the strategy, and they agreed that the practices address source water. Why is he still getting letters? So I guess the quick answer to that is it's our obligation. If it impacts the strategy, we are the ones who need to determine if the strategy addresses source water or not. We will work with the risk management official to do so, and you and the farmer. But according to the Clean Water Act, the source protection policies, we still have to make that determination.
Can I ask a supplementary question?
Yep.
Like, this man has a strategy in place. It's in effect. Why do you send this man a shotgun letter, and why don't you review the plan and address the concerns?
When you say review the plan, what do you mean?
Well, like, I mean, he has a plan that's 2 years old. Like the site maps, everything is there, the
Right.
strategy is
Okay.
there. Why do you send a general letter from you may be in this and this, and you may be in that and that, and you may need to do this and that? Why don't you, are you not specific? Why don't you review the plan, what's in effect, or the strategy, what's in effect?
So,
And ask them specific questions. How do you address this? How do you address
okay,
that?
so the question was, we have a strategy on record. Why aren't we just reviewing that strategy as it is and making the determination if source water is met or not? We can do that. 2 years, 4 years is a long time for practices to change on an operation. If we are required to amend a strategy and potentially impose conditions, we can do that on a strategy that's 3 years old. Is that the best course of action? Probably not, because things change. So the process that we're undertaking is giving the opportunity for you guys as the consultant and the farmer to say, this is what's working on my operation, this is how I will address source water based on what's going on right now. If you agree, conditions may go on the approval and the strategy conforms to source water. The whole source water protection program is meant to be a collaborative approach. So the process that we're using right now is trying to mirror that. We're working with you guys, we're working with the farmers and the risk management officials to see what works best on the farm rather than just imposing blind conditions on a strategy.
Get a supplementary question.
Okay, this is the last one.
There is a lot of farms that have water fields around well fields. And there's quite often only a small portion of a field working in the source water protection area. How much do you want review? Do you want, like for instance, you might have a farm that the farmstead is outside the source water protection. You might have 500 acres and only 10 acres fall in the source water protection area. Do we then draft up a plan for those 10 acres, or do we need to do the whole farm?
When you say draft up a plan, you mean create the strategy?
Usually what ends up being done is doing special farm practices on those 10 acres.
Okay, so the question was part of a farm unit where it's not the farmstead, maybe just cropland, falls within a vulnerable area. How do we handle that? That was your question? So this goes back to the letter that I talked about. So number 3, the letters for strategies where there's no strategy regulated activity occurring, so there's no manure storage or OCA or yard. That's where we put the general condition that the farmer can't establish a temporary field storage or a concrete pad and start piling manure there because it wasn't approved in the strategy originally. So it is taken into account during review for source water, but we understand that we don't manage nutrient application in a strategy, so there's no conditions that we can put there. Obviously, best management practices are always encouraged in areas like that, but there's no conditions to apply.